So we'll go into the rules. So rules, we're going to start off with 5-minute introductions by both candidates, their opening statement, kind of explaining overall who they are and why they're running. Then I have a list of questions that we won't get through, but we will go through as many as we can, and each candidate has 3 minutes to answer, and we'll go back and forth on who starts. And then after that, at 7:50, we'll wrap it up by having them each give closing statements for 5 minutes each, and then we'll be out of here. So it should be pretty easy. We'll keep it cordial. Obviously, no personal attacks or anything like that. And this is for information. That's why we're doing this here today. So that being said, we can go into it. So we'll go Mr. Rainwater and then Perry on the opening, and then we'll go the same order on the closing.
Thank you. Hello, 5 minutes. My family's here tonight. I want to make sure they understand the beautiful blonde-haired lady's my wife, Jan, and she helped me create this beautiful redhead back there with my grandchild. And her husband's here, he was part of that, I understand. And then my son is here with his beautiful wife, and my newest granddaughter, who was 10 weeks. And so it's a family thing for us. Appreciate y'all being here. It's a close experience. I think one of the reason I'm running for school board is because school's always been a passion for me. I read a quote just this afternoon when I was studying for this. It said, if you open a classroom door, you close a prison door. So my view is that children are sacred, creatures of God, and they have a right to do absolutely the best things we can for them. I think one of the first things that KISD is going to be faced with, and it's in process now, is the hiring of a superintendent. I've been a high school principal in Ellison for 23 years. I was a middle school principal at Ensalado for just 3 years. I was hired to be the executive director of technology up in the Career Center. Just hard work, surrounded by wonderful people who made me happy. I've been a counselor, school bus driver, a football coach, classroom teacher, of course. And all those things come together. I worked for 6 superintendents. And I'll tell you, each of those guys, each of those men were different. Each had different skill sets. Each had a different point of view. But I learned a little from each of them. And one of the things I've internalized, and one of the things that's kind of sticking with me is to hire a superintendent that fits Killeen ISD, that fits the tapestry of our district, is going to be challenging. Right now in the state, there are 76 superintendent positions open. The life expectancy of a school superintendent is 3 years. So, but that's not in and of itself an attractive position. But then you come to Killeen, Texas as a school district, it's very, very attractive for a superintendent to want to come here. We have money, which is very important in this crisis era. And we have guys that are supported, classroom teachers who are supported, and have wonderful professional staff development, and it's a growing district. So those kinds of things are going to come together to attract folks to KISD. As I've said in board meetings many times, the backbone of KISD is a classroom teacher. My view has always been, what does this do to the classroom teacher? How does this help the classroom teacher? I think the COVID crisis has finally made all of us realize, just with doctors and nurses and policemen and firemen and soldiers, that it's too hard. It's just too hard to do what we're asked to do. So I feel like every task that a classroom teacher has a profound impact on our classroom teachers. If you can't support the classroom teachers, you surely can't support the kids and student performance. So that's where I am, that's what I'm about, and I certainly appreciate your vote.
So, Hank.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Hank Perry. I'm running for Killeen Independent School District Place 4. And I will tell you that with the urging of many in the community, with those that I know, family and friends, I sit before you wanting to represent the school district, the kids, the teachers, parents, guardians. I have a child in KISD currently. And so for me, a family of 5, I have a son and 2 daughters that have all come through the school district. It's very personal. The fact that I have one still in the school district is very personal for me, and I feel like it is very absolutely critical that we continue to provide a world-class education to all of our children in this community. A little bit more about me. I've spent 26 years in the military. I retired from Fort Hood in late 2021, and since then I've been working with Amazon as a senior manager, and having that experience has really been something I think that's been profound for me, just to see how big business runs and how we deliver for customers. And so foundational for me is military experience, education at West Point, as well as spending 26 years deploying to and from different areas of the world, and then making sure that my family was in a position where they were supported, where they could thrive. And that's where Central Texas became so important for myself and my family. 12 years in and out of this area, different positions. I commanded the garrison of Fort Hood. I also served as the 3-Corps Chief of Staff. And then as I retired, and I mentioned a transition over to a corporate level role where we're focused on budgeting, strategic planning, and delivering for customers. And so what I would like to do is continue to bring my professional background to make sure that we continuously improve KISD so that we do have a world-class educational opportunity for all these children. We do a good job fiscally. I know that TEA ratings have been a challenge. We need to continue, we need to rapidly turn those and improve. I want to see the fact that talked with many parents, and that many parents share with me that reading is important, especially at the elementary age, and that has them concerned. And so focusing on curriculum where our kids are reading, and then making sure that, I know staffing is a challenge, and so ensuring that we have support for discipline issues in the classroom. That is something that we must have in order to establish the right culture and climate in the classroom, so we have quality learning happening by all the students, as well as we have teachers that truly want to be there. And so delivering results, providing smart business practices, being open-minded, bringing collaborative efforts, and then being part of something that is absolutely critical to our community, and that is hiring the next superintendent. And so I want to be part of that process. I want to be in the room, helping decide who we're going to hire, because it's that important for our kids. And so I take my family, my professional experience, and I think I failed to mention, my wife was unable to be with us tonight, but I've been married to Julia for 25 years, and she and I both love this community. And so please know that it's the professional side, it's the personal investment in this community that makes me want to run and represent the school district. I know that the Board of Trustees is there to implement policy. And so we need somebody on the school board who can take the right purview and making sure that we are implementing strong, sound policy in order to continue to grow this district deliberately, which we know we're going to, and make sure that we continuously improve. That, along with selecting the right superintendent, is going to ensure that the board that's implementing policy is also there to hold the superintendent accountable and maintain a great relationship between the superintendent and the board so that we have a great school district. And so with that, thank you for hosting tonight. I do appreciate this opportunity to speak with all of you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Okay, so the first question, we'll go to Mr. Rainwater, and then we'll go back and forth with starting. And it's about the budget. What parts of the budget do you want to increase? What parts do you want to decrease? What parts do you want to keep the same? Basically, how would you change the budget if you know it was only your decision from how it is right now? Mr. Rainwater.
I think KISD has a good perspective of the budget. The money is good. It supports our school. Our tax rate is one of the lowest tax rates in the area. If there's some areas that are going to be challenging for us and that we're going to have to develop in the out years, is our property values have gone way up. Well, if the property values go way up, that's more revenue for the ISD. More revenue for the ISD means the states come back in their recapture programs and take the monies from the ISDs. Well, and there's no recapture plan to get the money back. So if the ISD loses all this money, property values decline, then the school district's going to be in a situation where we're going to have to come up with money. Our starting teacher salary is $56,750 plus $5K to move plus a partially funded insurance policy. We're going to have to give teachers more money. That's not the solution. That's part of the solution. So that's going to impact the budget. We have expenses that are just incredible. Transportation is one. It cost $104 million to build a high school, Chaparral High School. If we bid Chaparral today, it'd be around $210 million. We redid Killeen High School, we being the board, I'm one of 7, do nothing alone, and vote with 6 other people. So if we were to rebuild Chaparral across the street for around $140, $200 million, we did Killeen High School, 14 phases, very, very expensive. So that just shows $94 million there that we spent. If you look at all the rooftops in Killeen, Texas, just drive around from the east side to the west side, from the north to the south, you'll see houses being built everywhere. Well, each of those houses, and I don't know the ratio, I can't remember, it creates the need for new schools in KISD. We have some schools like Parker Heights Elementary, some schools like Nolanville Elementary that are in place. Nolanville Elementary looks like we're going to tear down and build a new one. So replacing these schools and keeping up with the growth of the district is an incredible expense. If I had some curiosity that we were spending our money, when the COVID crisis came around, we spent a lot of money on technology. And technology is very, very important. But I want to make sure from the budget view that we have a clear scope of use for the technology that we're buying. And then we know what we're buying, and that our classroom teachers will use that technology to be supportive. It's horribly important for us to make sure we plug in and pay for everything.
In terms of budget, I mentioned previously that I think KISD has done a great job fiscally. We are fiscally sound. However, we must maintain that. I do know that from a maintenance and operations standpoint in our budget, from a debt service standpoint, there's creative and innovative solutions in order to tighten our belt in terms of how we operate, to pay down or bring down our debt service, so that when we do have to grow, when we do have discussions, potentially we're in a bond solution that doesn't impact the tax rate. I think that's important to many people that I talk to. And I know that we can be creative. I know that we can bring best practices and ideas to that discussion when we talk about how we're going to manage the budget. I think one thing that's very important, if we talk about budgeting, and we saw what happened in the last bond in 2018, it's very important to remember that we expect to continue to see growth across our district. Back then, it was discussed that we were going to see 450 students a year come into the school district, and that might have flattened out slightly over the last year or so. But in general, we need to make sure that we are still keeping our eye on strategic milestones for making sure that we've got every kid in the classroom, not in a portable. We've got teachers. We have programs in place so teachers are not coming out of pocket for supplies for what they need in the classroom. I've had several teachers tell me that they average over $700 out of their pocket. I think that's something that we need to make sure we look into and have a good plan in place for that when it comes to how we operate. I would also fundamentally look at a strategic facilities plan. What is our plan for growth and to maintaining and operating the facilities? If we have a trajectory that we're planning that was going to continue to see this over 4,000 students over 10 years, we need to keep that in mind. And so being innovative with how we manage our budget is absolutely critical. That we keep a sharp eye, a critical eye, and ask the hard questions and make hard choices. And so that's what I would do with the budget. I think I want to see a strategic facilities plan because it plays so much into how we budget. And then I would take a hard look at how we are conducting maintenance operations as well as the debt servicing in general. See where we can tighten our belt and avoid increasing taxes as best we can. Thank you.
All right, that actually leads me perfectly into our next question. So what is your opinion on a new bond for KISD? When you see that happening, how would you support that? How would you see that, alter the INS rate? I know you talked a little bit about that a bit. If you could go a little bit more in depth, and Hank, you can go first this time.
I think looking back at the last bond, it ended up being about, I think it was a little over $14.50 on an average house in KISD per month. And so with that said, I come back to my original comments on budgeting. We can be innovative in how we tighten our belts and how we operate to potentially avoid having to impose a tax rate increase, but I think we can still operate in such a way. I think that's a great conversation to have across the district, and one that we need to be very transparent as we are making those hard choices. And so in terms of a bond, I want to hear all sides. That's the way that I operate in a collaborative manner. I also like to iterate where we bring best practices and ideas forward, and then we deliberate it. The board is, again, 7 people who represent the entire district. And so having the ability to deliberate amongst the board members is vital to making good, sound decisions that represent the district. And so that's how I would operate, and I would make sure that we're asking the hard questions of those who are bringing proposals before us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And same question to you, Marvin.
Two things there in the taxation piece is the INS, you have a maintenance and operation piece. The maintenance and operation piece pays for the maintenance, the salaries, and the operation of these districts. The INS, which is called the sinking fund, is what we use to pay for our floated bonds. We had saved, I don't know how much, we saved a bunch of money 2 years ago after we floated the $500 million bond because the marketplace changed and the constant contact with those guys, so we were able to lower some things on the bond. So we managed quite nicely financially those bond payments. I think M&M was 51 cents, and I assume the rest of the property and the $1 votes, 101.600 or something, would be whatever's left over after 51 cents. About a bond issue, we built Jimmy Don Aycock, or we are building Jimmy Don Aycock Middle School next to Chaparral on the famous street you all know about. But we built that with some local funds. We didn't do that with a bond increase. We didn't do that with the tax increase. We have a strategic facilities saving account, I call it. So Jimmy Don was built out of that. We're going to redo Golden Hill Elementary, which is going to be a crazy piece of work because it's going to be right there where the old one is. And we're going to tear that the current Golden Hill Elementary down. So, and I want to get to that later if I can. So right now, I'm going to say I want to know a lot more about a bond issue, but the important part of that is, to me, is community involvement to let them know what we really want to do, because you cannot ignore the growth of our district and the increasing expense of what we're trying to do. So I think it's out there. I think it's, I can't say how far out there, but I think the first step is we have to make sure that we know what our community wants and then follow along with the community needs. So that's my piece of that.
Perfect. So, once again, y'all's answers fed into the next question. So, how do y'all view future long-term growth of KISD? Do you view it as flattening out like it has the past couple of years, or do you think we'll go to a fast growth district again? And if so, how does the school board plan for that, and what do you do to move forward with that? Marvin, you first.
I think given who we are in Killeen, given the fact that, well, Interstate 35, Interstate 14, look at the rooftops, KISD needs to plan for future growth. Yeah, I sit the board of the tax appraisal district as a director. I represent KISD on that. The people that sit the tax appraisal board district, real estate guys that have been around for a long time, insurance guys, construction guys, all of those guys are confident that we're going to grow. We're going to grow quickly. So I feel like we need to be able to prepare for that, to get our students the best possible education. Certainly not in portable buildings, and that's another conversation. We passed a bond issue, and we thought, well, and we had a hole in these portable buildings. Well, we probably should have said that, because unless people quit coming to Killeen, you're not going to have a hole in portable buildings. And now with the safety factor of schools, every kid needs to be in a building, a nice, safe building, where a teacher has everything she needs. And there's so much literature now about schools being built like prisons. And the American Medical Association has said it's a mental health crisis for kids. When you take a kid and send them out from a nice warm building into a building out there, it's not a good feeling for the kids. So those kinds of things you're going to have to look at and be aware of and get ready for growth. I deviated a bit, but that's where it is.
I'll take a little different perspective here as I answer the question. We know that we have a large military-connected community here. I spent 2 years as a non-voting member on the school board as the garrison commander, representing the nearly 30,000 military-connected kids and their families. I know that we do see deliberate growth. We do see, and we're expected to continue on this trajectory of growth. However, it may slow, but we need to be ready for growth if it does in fact reach the rapid level, as you mentioned, Mack. So, representing a military community, I will tell you that the first thing you do, as many of you know, when you're moving to a new location, is you look up the ratings. You look up great schools. You look up, where do I want my kids in school? That's the first thing you do. And I still, even today, I took a phone call from somebody who's moving here soon, and they said, where should I put my kids in school? Here's the different grade levels that we're looking at for our kids. And so we have got to make sure that we have the best school district that we can possibly have, which means we have to continuously improve, which means our grades must be continuously improving. Currently with a C overall, we can do better. And I'd like to see us rapidly change that around. Because for growth to continue to happen, the military community continuing to decide where they want to live and what community, we got to make sure that we are deliberately planning into that growth and making sure that we're doing that correctly. And so from a growth perspective and what's important to us, I think we need to keep our eye on absolutely continuing to grow and making sure that we have the right staffing. I already mentioned a strategic facilities plan to make sure that everything is in line with deliberate growth. And then I look forward to having conversations with the community, because it needs to be a two-way dialogue with the board members, the trustees, and the community on what's important to them. And that'll help with helping us solve the growth questions, the growth issues, the concerns, setting strategic milestones, and then having a superintendent in place that's going to drive us and deliver those results to get us to where we need to be as a world-class organization. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving away from growth and budgets, we're going to move to security. So what is your plan to increase the security of our schools from high school all the way down? And Hank, we'll start with you.
So I'll start off by saying I asked my daughter the other day, who's a junior at Hyper Heights High School. I asked her, just quite simply, does she feel safe? And she said yes. So that obviously makes me feel good. And I've heard anecdotally from other folks that in our community that by and large, they're very confident in where we stand in terms of security. But again, I think we can continue to do better. We can continuously improve. And it comes back to budgeting. It comes back to priorities. And I think that having a resource officer, a peace officer, but primarily a resource officer in each and every school is something we can do. We're not there yet, but I believe we can do that. I know recently some new types of metal detectors have been installed, which allows greater throughput. I think those are great, but I think that we still need to have that resource officer available, which will go a long way in terms of making sure that not only the kids feel safe, but they have an added layer of security around them. And so by and large, I think we do a good job, but I want to see us continuously improve, and that's one way we can do it, by just making sure that resource officers are out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Marvin?
Well, thank you, Valley, Texas. Never enough. The school is, and it's not simply security in the schools. It's the mental health program, it's red flag programs, it's counselors, it's parent programs, and then it's the police officers in the schools. All of these murderers that come into a public school and do these horrific things that are beyond belief have had published intent, published design to come and kill people. Somehow the current system, we have missed that. Our plan that we discussed, we, the 7 board members discussed in the boardroom, not my plan, but 1 of 7. That team discussed bringing a police officer to every campus. That team discussed spending ESSER monies. ESSER monies are monies that the federal government gave us to kind of get over COVID, to hire police officers, 1 for every campus. The KISD police officers. Just a sidebar conversation is our police officers have automatic weapons and cars and some other things I can't really discuss because it was an executive session. So we're taking those steps, but as we designed and talked about hiring these police officers, what we could not do, which to me is much to the credit of the chief of police, couldn't find police officers that thought like we thought. We couldn't find police officers that thought like we thought. We did not want to bring into a public school a street cop that didn't know where he was, that couldn't relate to the kids, and that couldn't do the things that we needed school officers to do. So That's who we are. I'll tell you that it's never enough. You can never give up, you can never turn it up. So that's my view of that. It's just got to get better and better and better. But it's a scenario of things. Don't just think about the policeman and the security. Think about the mental health of the kids as he walks through metal detector every day. And then think about the horrific loss of parents who sent their kid to school and they don't come home. So never's enough.
Okay, so both of you mentioned resource officers and peace officers. So actually going into more detail about that, where do you lie on both of those issues, whether it's a school resource officer or a peace officer? And what would be your plan if you wanted those in the school to implement that well, where it solves the issues we're looking to solve? And Marvin, let's start with you.
When I first in high school, we had 2 school resource officers who were trained by KPD, funded by KPD. Wonderful guys, developed wonderful relationships with the students. And I'd rather have a KISD peace officer who's highly trained to be a school resource officer. I want him there every day. I want him there developing relationships with our students. I want him to know the landscape of that school. So my opinion is the best way to get there is to hire a peace officer, KISD peace officer, who knows kids, who knows our school district, and is able to develop the relationships and work throughout the staff with the counselors and the teachers to help those kids.
Thank you.
Again, through conversations over the last month and a half with families, with teachers, with administrators, the view that I have on this is I want somebody who's highly trained. And I professionally growing up in the military, I would tell you that I know the value of good, hard training when it matters. And so having somebody who is highly trained, whether it's a police officer or a peace officer with experience, but we can look at that individually as well. But I also have heard, and I believe it, that it's not just truly the hard qualifications. We have to look at the individual. The individual needs to be the right person to be able to greet our children, to make sure that they're comfortable around them, to make sure they know exactly why they're there. I think the resource officer needs to be somebody who's there who, yes, is armed, yes, is highly trained, but has that personal connection with the kids. That'll go a long way in terms of, again, not only the perception, but actual, if there is an event that I think that they'll be highly effective because they've built relationships. They're known. They're there every day. That is very important when it comes to who we have in the schools. But the training is absolutely critical. The fact that we have someone there, absolutely critical. The fact that we have somebody who's the right person, who's been, is comfortable and people are comfortable with them, is part of the equation, I think is very important too. So I think it's a great question. And again, I think we can get there in terms of having one person there every day, each of our campuses. We can do it.
Thank you. So both of y'all have mentioned Killeen PD, but KISD actually spans 5 police departments, from Fort Hood to Killeen PD to Harker Heights PD and then Nolanville to the Sheriff's Department. So what is your strategy for working with all of those different organizations when it comes to response to things like school shootings or bomb threats or things of that nature? So we'll start with you, Hank.
I've had the experience of being a city manager as the garrison commander for Fort Hood, and I realized that all those essential services are that much better when they collaborate and they are able to leverage other resources and capabilities to augment maybe something that we're lacking, somewhere inside of one department versus another. So I think that in terms of leveraging and coordinating and making sure that we have some great training that is regimented that is definitely evaluated in terms of how we are meeting the bar on our preparedness for security and to react to any other situation from a first responder scenario. I think it comes down to understanding another person's capabilities so that you know who to call to augment when you are faced with a challenge. Because that happens. No two challenges are exactly the same, and you're going to have to know where the capabilities lie, and you only get that through experience and training with other departments. And so I think that's what I would make sure is happening, is some good quality training and cross-coordination so we know where we go to when we have the need.
Thank you. Marvin?
School Safety Center in San Marcos is responsible for safety in our schools. It's a TDA-funded gobs of money, thankfully, place. Our police department has gone there and cross-trained them. Our KSD Police Department practices those horrible scenarios with marker heights, and the local police departments, they don't go to Fort Hood because they can't take their guns. There's a problem with Fort Hood. It's military's responsibility. Our guys will serve them in any way they can. But they practice and rehearse and use our schools. I can tell you a funny story about it. I almost got shot one day, but we don't have time. But there's just great training that we have, and we do again and again and again. So those things are in place and they're ongoing. We have coming down from the Texas Safe School Center, we have people that actually come on our campuses and check it, make sure they do an audit. We don't know they're coming, and they'll report out. We just had one to our school board meeting. Can't say much about it in executive session, other than say that those safety audits have been in the 99.9 percentile of being safety. So to say we're on top of that, I would never say that. But to say we train and cross-train and have those communication pieces, who's responsible for new pieces, those are worked on continuously throughout the school year.
Okay, last security question. In Texas, the school districts themselves decide whether teachers can carry firearms in the classroom or not. What is your position on that? And if you think the district should authorize that, what safety measures and other policies would you put in place to make sure that's done responsibly? Marvin, we'll start with you.
That program was designed, I forgot the name of it. You can't call me it. The program was designed for schools in the country, for schools that are really far away from immediate police response. They train on their campuses a certain number of teachers who are allowed to carry weapons. And I don't favor those programs in a district our size. When a police officer comes on our campus, he will not know who's the good guy is and who the bad guy is. If a teacher in that situation pulls out a gun, they're going to shoot him. That's how it goes. So for that reason, we just don't need to put that burden on our classroom teachers. We have trained, skilled professional officers. I just think that's a real bad idea for school districts our size that have resources and availability of people to work.
Thank you. Hank?
I think it comes back again to proper training, and the resource officer and first responders have the training. So I agree, that's more for a rural area in terms of having others armed in the schools with permits, written authorization, and so forth per law. But I believe that it becomes very confusing and chaotic. It needs to be controlled as best it can very quickly. And you gain control of the situation by having people who are practiced, and they're bold, audacious, and they take control of the situation. And I think that it comes down to, again, I still have a child in the schools, and I want the best trained person with a firearm reacting to contact. If that makes sense to everybody. Reacting to a situation. That's what I want. And we can give that to our kids. I think that we have a good plan in place. But in terms of the resource officers and our first responders who are the right ones to do that. That's my belief.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to performance. So we're talking academic performance here. How do you plan to increase the academic performance of KISD schools? And we'll start with you, Hank.
When you see a campus that has I know there's some lagging indicators too, just to put that out there at the front, but when you see a campus that may have a failing grade, and as a parent, that concerns me. As a citizen, that concerns me. I know that we're working through some learning loss through COVID. I have children that were in the middle of that. I'm connected with those decisions of, does my child go to class, stay home, do virtual? I'm connected with that problem from a parent standpoint. I think that when I see a grade, you can always dig into the how it's evaluated, what is evaluated, but I can tell you that I want to hear from the people who are closest to the problem. I want to hear from the principal with the principal's staff who's closest to the problem, come up with the innovative and best ideas to quickly turn the situation around. And they bring that through the staff in KISD, and then there's proposals for policy changes that the board implements. And so, for me, I think it comes back to ensuring that, one, we do have a continuous improvement plan, which I've heard over the last month and a half or so at a couple of the school boards. I've heard some feedback on the improvement plan, the campus improvement plan. I think that setting some major goals that are aggressive in order to drive leaders to deliver results for our kids and on our kids' behalf, that would be the first thing that I would help drive. I would make sure that we're hearing those best ideas. And then the board needs to, again, deliberate and set policy in place or get additional information. But we owe that to our kids. In every aspect that we know that we are not meeting the standard across the state, I think that is a fair example of making sure that we hear from those that are closest to the problem. We have to have the environment in the school district where the voices are heard, no matter who you are. You're valued as an employee, you're valued as an educator, you're valued as a member of KISD. Bring your best ideas through the leadership, and let's hear some proposals that we can set in place for policy across this district. So I think that we can drive improvement very quickly. We also have to hire the right superintendent coming up that knows how to evaluate, how to drive towards these strategic milestones to get us on the path, on an upward trajectory across all the campuses and the district across the board.
Yeah, thank you. Marvin?
Let me just say this, I have 3 minutes. In terms of academic performance, I believe in systemic, continuous academic performance. You don't learn anything unless it's profound learning. You don't learn by Xerox papers and teaching to the test. We talk about KISD's performance, and it really irritates the hell out of me to hear that KISD isn't doing a good job in terms of performance. Let me just tell you about third grade reading, which is a STAR test. The third grade reading at the master's level in 2021 was 17%. 2022, it's 26%. You spread that among the ethnic groups. The African American is 11%, that increased to 15%. The Hispanic was 14%, increased to 25%. White folks were 26% to 32%, and that goes across the board. So we're making these successive steps to improve student performance. What I look at and what really irritates me is when we have I think 9 low-performing schools. We had 5 that were D's and 3s that were straight up F's. Well, what I ask myself as I set the dais as one of 7 school board members is how that happened. It's the hardest question I've ever been asked as a school administrator, and life asks me sometimes. But I will tell you How that happened is a significant question, because we have curriculum departments, we have consultants on campus, we have people that are at-risk coordinators, we have counselors to work with kids. It didn't happen overnight. And there were signs of that everywhere. And where I really get hung up is how that happened. How that happened on that campus. There's some campuses that are so much more difficult to educate students than in others. Well, then along comes the state and says, hey, we're going to go around teacher certification, scab labor, put it in what you want. So what we're going to do is hire these folks that have a college degree, could be in anything, enroll in a teacher certification program, and we're going to put them in the classroom. One of our lowest performing schools in KISD has more of these non-certified classroom teachers than any other campus. So as a board member, I say, how'd that happen? Why did that happen? Why are we not doing that differently? One of the things that's going to come along that's really wonderful that's going to improve that is a thing called TIA, Teacher Incentive Allowance. If those test scores are good, that's 60% of the rubric to determine who gets a TIA. There's 3 levels. There's 3 levels. A teacher could make as much as $30,000 a year by having good test scores. So that's going to motivate some teachers to be successful. It's also going to create some tremendous problems when the teacher says, I really rather not have that guy because I know he's a pain, I know he doesn't study, I know he's just a difficult guy to educate. So that's in place, but that's going to help us out.
Okay, thank you. So both of y'all got into a little bit with how you measure performance, but there are a whole lot of ways out there to measure how schools are performing. There's third-party measurements, there's standardized tests, there's graduation rates, there's college acceptance rates. Which of these measurements do you view as kind of the most telling of school performance? And which of these measurements would you use to see if your certain strategies are working or not? We'll start with you, Marvin.
If you're going to play the game, you've got to get the STAR testing. That's going to be the one that's going to clearly tell you how your students are doing. The MAPS testing, I've been a huge fan of MAPS. MAPS is the only testing thing that is proven to be non-biased and without some curves. STAR testing from the state of Texas, they'll create this test, and then if it's going to make the state of Texas look bad, they'll change the criteria for performance because they don't want all the schools in the state of Texas to look bad. So what's a teacher supposed to do? A teacher's going out today and getting a STAR test probably next week. Is it next week? And then the classroom teacher doesn't really even know how this test is going to be presented. In addition to that, a little 3rd grade kid now has resources, a calculator, a dictionary, and 2 or 3 other online resources to use. How's a 3rd grade kid going to do that? So if your question was, what's the legitimate, what's the best one to use, I would go with the Northwestern MAPS testing, because I think that's the most true one. The rest of them, you got to realize, this is political propaganda. The STAR testing to me is just straight propaganda from the state of Texas, which, by the way, has spent billions of dollars and hasn't done a darn thing to improve student performance. Scared the death out of the kids and made teachers worried. They didn't help that much.
Amy.
So obviously, Mr. Rainwater has a lot of experience with the testing from his years in the district. As a parent, my kids always talked about the STAR test, and some of my kids have even, a couple of them have mentioned how they feel like they're studying for the test, and that has become kind of the norm for them as they in some of their classrooms. I do think that there's probably merit in the STAR test as a parent and somebody who needs to dig into it, obviously, and hopefully take position on the board and hear from those who have the experience with it. But I also think that there's always room to question all the tests, the frequency of tests. That's what I'm also hearing, is regardless of the tests or the format, there's the frequency concern that we're hearing from the educators. Too much. Some people think it's just right. I personally, I'll tell you, I think that we have to make sure that we are testing what the right frequency is. I would say I need to make sure that I'm providing feedback, again, from people who are closest to the problem with the best practice. That's how you figure out the right frequency from educators in the classrooms today. I'm also going to say that, in terms of continuous improvement and making sure that we're holding the standard, I also believe in auditing what we're doing. And I know that we're talking about testing test scores and which ones are the best, but everything we do, we need to take a critical eye to it, and doing things the same way just because we've been doing it is not what I'm about. I'm about doing things smartly and being creative to drive towards the result we want. And I think smart and focused internal and external audits can definitely help in that with that effort in general. But that's kind of where I fall in terms of the best testing methods and the formatting. I'm going to rely on those who are close to the problem to bring that to the board. Again, I'm not an educator. I didn't spend my whole career in the classroom, but I can tell you, given choices and given good options, I will help us get to the right solution as we do problem solving and make hard choices and decisions.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to specific curriculum. So what part of the curriculum, what core classes do you think need to be added? What necessarily needs to be removed? How do we improve the curriculum of KISD? And I know that's a lot, but yeah, just a little bit of an overview. And Hank, we'll go with you first.
Again, I think it's a very important question. One that I am confident that educators of today have strong positions on. As I'm standing in a garage in Killeen, helping people understand, telling them why I'm doing this, why I want to commit my time to serve as a trustee for our great school district. I hear them say that their 5th grader can't read. And that bothers me to the core, because I know how foundational reading is to everything else in the educational journey and opportunities that child is going to have throughout their life. My wife and I were big advocates of strong reading skills, and then definitely we augmented and we pushed for continuous education at the house if we felt like they were weren't getting what they needed. And just to share this with you, so our son ended up going to West Point, and our daughter's at the Naval Academy now, and absolutely the STEM programs, the dual credit programs, the fact that they are focused on math, science, reading, and I'll tell you, music. And I played college football. I was recruited to play football at West Point, and I played quarterback. Didn't start, but I had a great time. But the fact that I played football, sports are very important to me personally, but I know that my wife and I knew that there's a connection with music that helps the child be a better student, and I believe it. And so all of our kids have made their way through band, playing different instruments. So I believe in making sure that we're shoring up our reading, especially at the elementary ages. We've got to make sure that without distraction, our educators can get that done. And I want to see us have balance with offerings for education and sports. We need to make sure that there's all kinds of opinions out there, but I know there's a connection personally with music and the fact of how the child performs in math, science, reading in the classroom. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Marvin?
Curriculum is defined as that everything occurs in the school. That's curriculum. So we need a solid core curriculum. STEM is a great piece of that. But what I would like to see is a curriculum that's flexible enough to go take the 5th grade kids that Hank talks about that he says can't read, and to go back and capture those kids before they ever get out of 1st or 2nd grade. I mean, that's, I think, yeah, we're both there, so that's a curriculum piece that we need. But when I was principal of Willow Springs Elementary School, just a quick story is, man, those pre-K teachers, they could tell me today, after about a week in school, which little guy isn't going to make it and which little guy needs all the help in the world. And I had no resources to go back and pull them in there because they had to get them to come sit down, be socially interactive. Another curriculum I really favor and support, we're going to have to do social and emotional learning in all our curriculums. In fine arts, it's a great leadership program, and athletics is great. All those things have to come together to support the child in that social, emotional learning piece. Because if the kid's got all kinds of things going on at home, all kinds of things going on at school, being bullied, being threatened by folks, then we have to put all those things together so a student, to enable him to be successful. What I would like to see is more national merit scholars come from KISD, and then, you know, you say, well, that might be a gene pool thing. You know, well, I don't think it is. It might be a gene pool thing, but, you know, it's kind of like gold in the mine. If you don't mine it, you'll never know it's there. You never have to rub that. So all those things come together to educate that child. And you know, I mean, if the school is not there for the curriculum to teach kids, we've got to think again what we're doing.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question is about outliers. So there, especially in a district as large as Killeen, there are a lot of outliers. Whether you're talking gifted and talented, whether you're talking special education, whether you're talking behavioral outliers. How do you deal with those outliers? Do you separate them in a specialized school? Do you send them to an extra class? What is your method to make sure those outliers are getting the special attention they need? And we'll start with you, Marvin.
We have outliers. We have kids in school. Well, we have the Early College High School. That's a college. He graduates there with a social arts before he gets high school diploma. We have kids at, I think at Metroplex, special education kids that are in the hospital for all their various needs. We have 5 STEM programs in our campuses that are inculcated into the campus culture. I was thinking, I would really like to see a leadership high school. I'd love to see a fine arts high school. I'd love to see a technology high school. We have another special campus, which is a career and technology center. So I'd like to go down those paths. But what I don't want to do is separate all the high flyers and then drain our campuses of all our students that they all need to be around each other. You know, when they go out there and go to work, you're going to work with kids, a tapestry of students, both intellectually, racially, and everywhere. So I don't ever want to put our students in a way where we're just isolated from everyone else.
Hank.
I had a student of mine, my oldest daughter, who's I mentioned she's a junior at the Naval Academy. She went to Temple Bioscience Institute and graduated with her associates. We thought she was going to go to one of the schools here in Texas, graduate in 2-3 years, and instead she chose I think a harder route, in my opinion, and she did that on her own, where none of that counted. She had to redo a 4-year degree. So she really challenged herself. I think kids are motivated by their parent. Kids are motivated by their guardian. Parents are motivated when they hear why it's important to get a great education. Why it's important to get a great education. You got to motivate these kids. We need to make sure that when they're in the classroom, they're not distracting others. And when they are distracting others, we support that discipline. And how do we do that? Teachers are frustrated. Teachers are frustrated that they feel like they can't deal with that. And so, how do we deal with outliers? I believe that there are kids who are motivated. There's kids that come from all different backgrounds. I mentioned in the outset, I recognize 80% minority. But I know that everyone I talk to in this community has told me, and they shook my hand and looked at me in the eye and said, they want performers and merit to drive opportunities as well. And I think that's very important. So how can you, in one vein, say that you don't want all the high flyers to go elsewhere and hold back others? I think, again, there's a balance. You offer different offerings at all the different schools, but we still need to go after dual credit. We still need to allow those that want to reach. And then those that are having trouble, various reasons, we need to find creative ways to connect with the parent, the guardian, and making sure that we have a whole family solution on what's happening there. And it's also connection with the entire educational environment. So at different school events, on the sporting field, different music type events, but in the classroom, we have to support those that also need support. So I think that when it comes to special education as well, in terms of individual education plans and making sure that we are meeting the bar. I love the fact that we do have an audit that has to report back here pretty soon. I would look very fondly and favorably on seeing the results and then making sure that we implement the best practices and the recommendations from the audit, so that a lot of people are concerned about special education. So we've got to raise that bar and make sure we're doing that right. We must. Military families move here, they have a special education need. We need to be able to offer that to the military families, so that this is the crown jewel of school districts that attracts everyone to make this their home. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're gonna skip down to two questions that are kind of Killeen ISD specific, so we don't miss them. So one is the new superintendent. What are you looking for in a new superintendent? What is your method going to be when looking to hire them? And really, what's that process for you going to look like? And we'll start with you, Hank.
Near and dear to my heart is seeing strong leaders, capable leaders, strategic leaders who are selected for big tasks. And when I say big tasks, leading a school district with more than 44,000 plus kids, with the number of campuses and deliberate growth that we're going to see, we have to make the right choice. I think that the transparent way in which the search is ongoing, with town halls that started yesterday, I think that's great. We want to solicit feedback from the community. We want to hear what's important to people. I know that I want a strategic leader who earns trust, can collaborate, can communicate to everyone in the community, and is, by and large, a trusted person in the community, because they're working on behalf of everyone in the district. So I want to ask hard questions pertaining to trust, pertaining to experience, and gain leadership experience. And I want to know that they have what it takes to communicate across this vast school district. That's going to be a recipe for success for our next school district superintendent. Thank you.
Thanks. Marvin?
Community consultant, the firm we hired, unanimous school board vote. It's going to take this community surveys, which are available online. In this community surveys, we're going to develop a superintendent's leadership profile, which meets the needs, correlates with the survey results. From that area, then we'll go into online interviews, and then the board will meet is which guys to use for real face-to-face or not. There's 76 superintendent's openings in the state of Texas, and so KIC is attractive. I want a superintendent that's had experience in the large school district. I want a superintendent who can come in here and say, I'm really great at these things. Transactional leadership is what I'm about. He can bring people on the board, bring people with him. He can develop that in our ISD. But we really need someone who's skilled, who has a proven track record. There's simply no way in the world we can come into KISD without a wonderful set of skills in a large district and be successful. So that's what I'm looking for. One of the good things about J&N Consulting is they do kind of a profile test on the superintendents. It's use intelligence, kind of some decision-making processes. There's one that I forgot. But I want to see those results and see how they line up with what the guy really says. It's so important.
Thank you. Hank. All right, sorry. Okay, so the next one. Yeah, there we go. So the next one is about labor shortage. So specifically talking about teachers and school bus drivers in Killeen ISD, we have problems with hiring enough, and we have problems with turnover. What would you do to address those issues? And yeah, what can we do to make that better? Marvin, we'll start with you.
I think one of the things in the district is sort of doing it nowadays is the culture of appreciation for our staffs. I think one of the things we can really improve on, and we're beginning to do that, is letting folks know how valuable they are and how much we need them with us. I'm not sure that the kind of busboy or a cafeteria worker or a kitchen worker, we really do a great job of expressing our appreciation for them because they're all valuable in the school experience. High training to help people understand their roles and to know what they're supposed to do. And I think what's so important is too, in these, maybe dealing with marginal employees or maybe people who've had some bumps in the road, is that you reach out to them and let them know they're skilled, we have money in them and training, and start investing in them and see if we can grow them and keep them. To attract teachers in Killeen, it's going to be has to be lots of things. It has to be our climate, has to be our culture, has to be our pay, has to have a sense of community and good feeling about us to bring people in and to bring other people in. But we're in a nationwide worker shortage. We're competing with everybody. And I tell you, these old guys out there in the business industry, they know school teachers are pretty good hire. So that's only probably going to get worse. But I think that's what we do to start these things.
Thank you. Hank.
I do think that in order to solve any kind of shortage when it comes to our staff, it starts with leadership. The tenets of my leadership principles, I guess the leadership principles for my overall leadership style and the way that I believe in leading has served me well over the years, where I think that culture, people, and process are hugely important to a highly effective and well-run organization. Culture, people, and process. Each one of those, the board implements policy on culture, people, and process. That's what the board does, and then holds the superintendent accountable for how the school district is being administered. So if you have a shortage, you have to make sure you start with the strategic leader who's in charge, that is a trusted and consistent leader. Point blank. Trusted, consistent leader, where that creates the culture, that creates the environment, and then we have to support the teachers, like I already mentioned. We have to support the teachers with innovative, creative solutions for supporting discipline in the classroom. That is a must. And then we've got to connect the kids and the parents and the guardians to some of those concerns. To solve the issues and support our teachers, I think we all acknowledge the pay has come up significantly, and it's pretty good. Healthcare is always something we can always look at. I know that in general, we need to take a look at how all the administration, librarians, I would say we need to look at everything. So that goes fundamentally to the core of the culture of an organization. But it's having somebody who's consistent in the organization as a strategic leader is very important. The superintendent, making sure the board is setting good policy around culture, people, and process will solve our shortages. I do think I recognize we are in a shortage, but let's make this school district the jewel. Let's make it the world-class organization that it can be, and I bet you we turn this around in terms of any of our shortages. And kids and families are going to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we actually have time for one more. So I wanted to get one in about discipline. Discipline is a big problem with teachers. I know a lot of teachers personally have left because the discipline job has been thrust on them rather than like the school administration or the principal. What would you do to fix the discipline problem in schools? And we'll start with you, Mack.
You all just heard me mention it. I think it's fundamentally, it's the connection with the family. It's the connection with the guardian, with whoever that child looks up to in a family setting, or mentors. We need to get creative to find a solution to that connection so that kids understand the why. The why in education is important. Why they have to read and be the best readers that they possibly can at the earliest possible in their educational journey. So I think that to me is, I kind of already answered it. It's ensuring that we make the connection with the families and we make sure the kids understand the why. That gets to some of the discipline concerns. Doesn't solve it, because you are going to have some. I'm not ignorant, or I'm not in dreamland on that. I do believe that we have to have other creative solutions. I've also heard from administrators that we know some school districts levy a fine if there's discipline issues, and the parent is responsible for that. So there's another connection. And so we need to look at all options, because it's that important to make sure that we support our teachers. I mean, I'm not saying that is something that I would definitely do. I want to hear all options so that the teachers feel supported and we have the right culture. That'll help with discipline. And then the ones that are continuously in trouble, we've got creative solutions to bring mentors, bring in the family, bring in other resources to dedicate the time to understand and make sure that we're explaining the why to the child.
Thank you. Marvin?
Well, I don't walk on water. I think discipline is a huge issue in our school. I think part of the reason it's an issue is because the teachers and administrators are overworked and have so much to do they can't spend the time with the kids they want to. I think just this week, administrators and teachers are getting ready for about 4 or 5 different kinds of testing, which takes them out of their offices and out of their role. But you have to understand too, if you're dealing with a kid that has a 504 plan, if you're dealing with a kid that has an IEP, if you're dealing with a kid who absolutely has some serious emotional problems, is yet to be diagnosed and comes from a horrible background, all of those things impugn every day the learning of all the kids around them. And administrators are caught spending their time with those guys. I've often said I wish KISD did not have an alternative school, which simply means I wish we would go back and start. I told you about the teachers at Willow Springs, working with those kids at a very early age and getting them comfortable in school, meeting their needs. I was a classroom teacher. The first thing I did by accident was I sat down and listened to every kid read. And if a kid couldn't read to me in world geography class, then I would work with that guy and just try and develop a strong relationship with him. Because if he can't read, he's going to create problems in class. But it's not one single thing. It's a combination of several things. I think we need to emphasize discipline much more than we do. A lot of times, I heard of a case where a parent came to school and at the end of the day, the parent got arrested, both children in school got arrested, because they just came and raised Cain for the whole day. Well, that didn't work for me. My deal is you start like that, you just start it and you need to be arrested. So I want to just go ahead and say, let's just get rid of the fact that teachers are there to be abused, that administrators are there to be abused, set firm guidelines and follow them and follow them and follow them, no matter what. So it's a start, and we have to get busy with that.
All right, thank you. So now we will move on to our closing statements, and we will start with you, Marvin. So 5 minutes each.
I just want to say, and I lost my note here, that in terms of special education, it's just it's a tough spot. I'm not saying it's okay. I think special education can do things differently and be improved. But last year there were like 7,900 referrals to special education. Each of those referrals start with a kid probably being disruptive in class, or a kid that's either autistic or has some other handicaps. So the special education department has to have an ARD meeting for each of those kids. And so that means you have to get the parents at school, you have to develop an IEP for the kid, and then you have to make a meeting, make sure everyone agrees, and you have to put that in place, and you follow up in 30 days. So it's very, very complicated. The special education needs the help and it needs the staffing. Although we spend about 20% more on that. So it might be time to look at that program and see what we can do in organization to help. To me, Killeen is a great district. And it's awful easy for someone, I'm not talking about him, it's awful easy for someone to throw a wrench in there and say, oh, this is bad. There's always bad, man. This is life. There's always bad. But I think one of the things we really, really need to do is to start focusing on how great KISD is and what a great job we're doing in this situation. And then to understand the tapestry of Killeen Independent School District. I think the greatest compliment that I ever received as a high school principal, I was in Atlanta, I think, in a terminal place. Play terminals. So a kid came up to me 2 or 3 dates down and said, hey, Mr. Rainwater, I want to thank you for being a principal I was in high school. I was all proud. So I said, well, tell me about it. She says, well, Nelson High School is the world. So, and she's the vice president. So when I went to World, my work, I already knew about the tapestry of the folks I'm going to work with. I'm working with a black guy, I'm going to work with a brown guy, I'm going to work with a guy that's just kind of not really committed to what we're doing. I'm going to have to be successful with all these people. You remain the vice president of this company. I first learned that at Ellis High School. I think the tapestry of our district is a wonderful, beautiful thing, and we need to build on that. Anyone can be constantly critical, and I see it in the boardroom, but I want us to talk about the great things that are happening, and how dedicated our staffs are, and how much we're working to support our teachers and our kids, because that's to me success. Yeah, I was just going to say one of the things about KISD spending is we really spend above the state average on each of our students. The state average is $11,106, and KISD is $12,639. So we've got the money there to do better, and we need to look at the things that are in that school culture to make sure these kids are very successful. We have the resources, and there's no reason we can't continually, progressively move up in these areas. There's lots of challenges, but I feel like we can do it for everyone's sake.
Thank you very much. Hank?
Well, first, thank you for hosting. Thanks to the Republican Party of Belk County and Mack. Thanks for hosting this tonight. And thanks to the brewery here for having us. You know, we're here because we want to serve the community. My hat's off to Mr. Rainwater, who's been doing this. He's been an educator since the mid-'60s. And I know he's been serving on the school board for quite some time. But what I hope to implore upon you and ask for your vote is what I think the contrast is. The contrast is, I wasn't an educator for all these years. I haven't been in the school district. I recognize that we need continuous improvement. I've got a child in the school district, so I'm definitely vested. I live here. I retired here. My wife and I work in and around here. So this is our community. And so my hat's off to Mr. Rainwater for all the years of service here, educating all the kids. You're a fine man. I've sat next to you for a couple of years on the school board. Enjoyed getting to know you. So you won't hear a terse word out of me. I think that's the proper way to do this. But The contrast is I want to bring a critical eye and a fresh perspective. I want to bring a tighter connection with the generations that we have. I understand some of the difference in how they're learning in the homes, and I'm hearing very loudly from those that I'm meeting in the community of what their concerns are. The kids need to read. We need to tackle the discipline concerns, and let's take a look at the curriculum when it's not just reading, writing, math, socialization at the elementary ages, and what kind of administrative levies are we putting on top of our teachers so they can conduct their business and teach our kids. Let's get the right teachers in there. I know that's hard to do when we have a shortage, but create the environment and we'll fix the shortage. Create the environment, and we need to be creative on keeping the right people in those classrooms who are fabulous, and they may not have the right credentialing right now. Let's get creative and find some solutions. But I want to serve this community. I want to serve the kids. I want to serve the staff of KISD. And this is a labor of love for this community to want to serve, to sit up on this stage and try to recognize challenges as well as successes. There's a lot of good things going on in this school district. There are also some challenges, and I want to see continuous improvement with a critical eye, a fresh perspective, and bring some proven, I would say, some leadership from my background, executive experience in major corporations, to ensuring that we're putting the best practices in place to bring the school district to a world-class level. And we can do that very quickly. It's just going to take some consistency and getting the right leaders in there. So I hope to be part of the selection process for the superintendent. It's that critical. And so I hope to be on the board with the members, deliberating, asking the hard questions on behalf of you, and making sure that we take the school district in the right direction for the coming years. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.